If you're watching The Prepper Historian, you're here because history isn't just a story to you. It's a toolbox. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the forgotten lessons that can genuinely sharpen your survival mindset. Today, we're stepping into the blistering heat of the North African front to uncover how Second World War soldiers survived conditions that should have killed them within hours. These aren't romanticized tales. These are hard-earned, field-tested skills pulled from diaries, after-action reports, and the lived reality of men who fought, marched and endured through the Sahara and beyond. And in a world where heat waves, desertification, and resource scarcity are becoming part of modern life, these Second World War lessons are more relevant than ever. Why the desert forced soldiers to relearn survival from scratch. The North African deserts didn't care if you were British, German, Italian or Free French. The sand ate engines, the heat fractured discipline, and the nights froze bones. What made the desert unique was its ability to strip away every comfortable assumption soldiers brought from Europe. Units discovered quickly that desert survival wasn't about gear. It was about mindset, discipline, and adapting to a place that gave you no second chances. Modern preppers and history buffs can trace many of today's survival principles directly to what those soldiers had to learn under fire. For example, the long-range desert group understood early that you couldn't fight the Sahara. You worked with it. And that mindset alone is one of the most important lessons we can apply today. Understanding water management the way the LRDG mastered it. Water wasn't just a supply. It was logistics, morale, and life expectancy compressed into a single container. Soldiers learned that carelessness with water was an act of sabotage against your own unit. Men in the LRDG and SAS developed strict rules. Drink before you feel thirsty because dehydration sneaks up faster than your brain can warn you. Store water in the shade of vehicles. Bury containers during halts to keep them cool, and never ration water in a crisis. You ration activity instead. For modern preppers, one practical adaptation is training your hydration habits in controlled environments. Go on a day hike and track how your body responds in heat. Then adjust how you pace yourself. The Second World War lesson here is clear: water discipline is more effective than water abundance. Knowing when and how to intake fluid will keep you operational long after gear fails. Mastering desert navigation the way reconnaissance units did it. In the North African theatre, compasses twisted under heat, tracks vanished under wind, and landmarks disappeared into haze. Soldiers became expert readers of subtle terrain cues, the shape of dunes, the angle of shadows, and the pattern of prevailing winds on sand ridges. They learned to trust dead reckoning only when paired with observational discipline. One SAS veteran described navigation as a constant conversation with the environment. We can apply that same principle today by training our situational awareness. Instead of relying on GPS, practice keeping mental maps. On your next drive or hike, try tracking your route using only landscape features and sun position. This Second World War skill teaches that navigation is not a tool. It's a habit that must be honed. During the Second World War, soldiers had to control their energy and movement just to survive the brutal heat. Marching in desert conditions, well, it required a kind of humility that, honestly, most soldiers weren't used to. Units learned to move slowly, deliberately, and efficiently. Because, you see, speed in the desert often meant death by exhaustion. They'd walk with a certain rhythm that conserved energy, and they stayed covered, even when it felt counterintuitive to wear layers in the blazing sun. To cope, they rested in the shade of vehicles, made makeshift sun shelters out of tarps and canvas, and used nighttime hours for the most physically demanding tasks. For modern survivalists, the takeaway is actually pretty simple. Managing heat isn't about fighting the temperature. It's about pacing your output. So, the next time you're out doing yard work in the summer or training outdoors, try adopting that old WWII principle of forced rest cycles. Work for 20 minutes, rest for 10 in the shade, and cover your skin rather than exposing it. This lesson applies both historically and practically. Efficiency, in the end, is what keeps you alive. Learning resourcefulness from mechanics who kept broken convoys moving was honestly one of the most remarkable lessons of desert warfare. Desert warfare turned mechanics into, well, miracle workers. Sand-clogged carburetors, shredded fan belts, and ground-through bearings. Yet, somehow, convoys kept moving because soldiers developed improvisational repair skills. They used cloth strips as emergency filters, welded with batteries and wire, and cannibalized wrecks to keep the living machines rolling. The prepper lesson here is one of adaptability. Practice repairing simple items around your home without buying replacement parts. Fix a torn backpack strap with stitching instead of tossing it out. Patch leaking containers. The Second World War desert teaches us that the ability to improvise materials under pressure is worth more than expensive gear that you don't know how to repair. Embracing desert night strategies that soldiers depended on is truly an essential skill. Nights in the desert are harsh in their own way. Temperatures dropped so rapidly that poorly prepared soldiers risked hypothermia. Units used layering systems, heated stones buried under ground sheets, and shared body heat to maintain stable temperatures. They also learned that night was the best time for long-distance moves, reconnaissance, and equipment maintenance. For today's survivalists, the lesson is to understand thermal shifts. Spend a day outdoors and remain out after sunset to feel how your environment changes. Build a routine for organizing gear in the dark, something soldiers did instinctively. This practice creates confidence that you can function when light disappears, a core Second World War desert principle. Mental resilience, was the quiet factor that kept men alive. Physical technique mattered, but mindset mattered more. Veterans consistently wrote that the desert rewarded calm thinking and punished panic immediately. The men who endured longest were those who treated hardship as normal rather than catastrophic. Modern preppers can apply this by training stress management. Do controlled discomfort training, cold showers, long hikes, intermittent fasting. These build the same mental tolerance that sustained soldiers far from supply lines. If you found these lessons valuable and you want more forgotten survival wisdom drawn straight from history's toughest battlefields, subscribe to The Prepper Historian and share this video. Every week we uncover skills that deserve to be remembered and used.